Welcome to Gold Derby. I'm senior editor Denton Davidson, and I'm speaking with Pan Nalin, whose movie Last Film Show has been shortlisted for Best International Feature at the 95th Academy Awards. Nalin, congratulations on being among just 15 films selected to make it to this stage. What's that experience been like for you, and what does it mean for you to represent India in this way?
Oh, it's absolutely thrilling and pretty joyful. Especially, it was an exciting news when India chose to send us as an entry, because as you know, we make 1,000+ movies in India, and there are all kind of films with big studios, stars, and streamers. And so the Film Federation of India then said, okay, we are choosing Last Film Show to go out there and represent India. So that was already a great thrilling news, because earlier the same thing was tried with my first feature film with Miramax. It was called Samsara. They were very keen that India should do it, but we were not because it was my first feature and no one knew anything about it. So in a way, kind of a dream fulfilled halfway. And that was sort of validated by the Academy members when they shortlisted us. So that felt a little good, because once we arrived here with my team, we felt honestly very lonely without any stars, studios, or streamers, because we realized the game was something else.
Right. Well, I mean, what is that process like in India? Because it's so vast. There's so many different types of films. There's different languages. So, I mean, what process do you have to go through in order to be selected?
I think in India, there's a body called Film Federation of India. Every year they have a new jury member, which are about 15 to 20, 20 of them. So this year there were about 17, and everyone from all parts of India can submit their film for consideration. And then they are obliged to watch them only in cinema hall, not, they all watch together, not on their own, not on any platform. So they have to watch all the movies together, and then they deliberate and vote which movie should go. And as the jury, probably you might have read, the Film Federation of India said that, unanimously they voted for Last Film Show this year. Apparently there were a lot of young filmmakers and cinematographers, editors, who sort of probably they've seen my earlier work and this work, and we realized that probably there were not that many Indian movies having distribution worldwide. So that also helped. We had already won a couple of awards since we opened at Tribeca in Spain, and Shochiku in Japan, and Medusa in Italy, and Samuel Goldwyn Films in US. So many things they must have considered. I believe to say, okay, this could be a serious contender. And my earlier movie have track record of opening in Europe and in Asia and in South Korea. So there has been a kind of a niche international career there. But, for India, it's very complex because it's so hard to choose one film. I wouldn't be like to be in that jury because, you have big studio movies, you have popular films with big stars. There are such amazing regional films. And we make movies in Tamil, Telugu, Malayalam, Hindi, but so many languages. Mine is in Gujarati, Last Film Show, which is a very tiny industry in India. And Gujarati film industry is at very, and to ask such a big country of 1.4 billion people with 22 official languages to say, okay, choose one film is a tough call. It's
Right.
like asking European Union to send only one movie,
Yeah. Well, this film, Last Film Show, has been described as semi-autobiographical, and it's very personal for you. Can you talk about the premise of the film and how closely does it follow your own childhood?
The film pretty much closely follows one part of my childhood, but it is also inspired from my childhood friend who was a film projectionist, Mohammed Bhai, who lived in the same village where I shot the movie. So I would say more or less climax is inspired from his life. What happened to him when he lost his job in 2011, when most of the single screen were going digital, and many of them were shutting down to make room for multiplexes. And there were at least 200 to 300,000 35 mil projector operator lost job, and no one really looked after them till today. So I was sort of moved by that story way back. Concerning my childhood, I never thought I would ever make a movie about my falling in love with cinema story, because it is something I try to run away from all my life. So I said, like, why go back there, but that incident, and in 2018, when I wanted to shoot a film on celluloid, it was nearly impossible to finance. So I realized, okay, what happened? What did go wrong? And it just came straight from heart. I started writing, stories and anecdotes, sort of inspired from my life, what my friends and family had shared with me over the years. Then the projector operator, he had told me that, how when he lost his job, how projectors were turned into recycled into spoons, and film became bangles for women to wear, and what a world we have come to. So all that sort of stayed with me. And I realized that, okay, probably because of my friend's story, I have a good climax. So I don't have to make a very nostalgic or sentimental story about celluloid. I can say, okay, we can embrace the change. India, the spirituality about light and reincarnation is very strong. So we do believe everything must go on. So in certain way, everything lives on, whether it's projector or films in a different form. And they are sort of celebrated, in a different avatar, as we call it, in different incarnation. So when I realized that I have an end which could be kind of optimistic and hopeful, I thought, okay, this was a good time to probably make this film. It will be 10 years of disappearance of celluloid. It seems like it was centuries ago, but it was just 10 years ago we were using celluloid. Yeah.
And you cast Bhavin Rabari as the star. What was it about him? How did you find him? And what made him stand out that gave you confidence that he could carry this film?
So earlier casting, we went through around 3,000 audition, and our first casting started with child actors, professional child actors, because as literally he's in every single frame, it's normal thinking for a film crew and producer that we need a professional child actor, because this is a very demanding role. And those earlier auditions were very disappointment, because many of the kids are influenced by over the top Indian cinema is popular cinema is everything is over the top, larger than life. Yeah. Or their parents push them to go to TV reality shows. So their idea of acting is so corrupted and not, and so the purity we found was gone, with my casting director. And then we thought, why not we go into region? Let's risk it. Let's look for non-actor, where kids rarely go to see films. So I think that's where we hit jackpot. So we arrived in this remote countryside, where villages, where kids very rarely go to see film. And when we met Bhavin Rabari with his 2 cows and a buffalo in a government school, living in a small village, there was something about him which was very striking. So what we did in the very first stage, we shot extreme close-up only of his eyes. Not even ears, no lips, no nose, extreme close-up of eyes when he's happy, sad, longing for something, excited, all kind of expression. And we brought back to our production base those 40 shots, put them back to back. We had about reel of 60 seconds. We beamed it, projected it on a wall, me and my editor. And we both had goosebump and wet eyes. We said, like, there's no script, there's no dialogue. His eyes were so moving. This tiny kid, tiny eyes, but suddenly on the big CinemaScope screen, they just became something else. And then we spoke with him, met with him, and he had that innovative spirit like the role demanded, because we gave him a lot of junk, like the bottles and, thrown away cardboard, and say, make something out of it, and we'll come back and see you after 2 hours. He will always come up with something. He never made an excuse. Oh, I need sellotape. I need Caesar. Oh, I don't know what to do. It's, oh yeah, I can do something. Just go ahead. So we liked that playfulness, and he had the right body language, the innocent. And we told him that, look, we are not going to give you dialogues like in normal movie. There will be no script and scene. We will explain to you the situation and you make up your line. And he did that bang on, like very closely what we were writing. And that's when we realized, oh, half the battle is over. Yeah, Bhavin Rabari, he literally saved the film.
Wow. Yeah, he's incredible. Can you talk about also just the creation of the world and where it was filmed? Because a lot of it's outdoors, and then we see that old movie theater. Where were you filming, and how did you create that world for us?
So in order to find first production friendly location, we try to go near the big cities and town, but we did not really find the locations which I wanted. So ultimately, with my cinematographer and my team, when we went to the place I grew up, he said, "Why not we just go and do extensive location scouting and we shoot here, and we will find a way to stay and do all the logistics." So we ended up filming in a region called Saurashtra or Kathiawad in the northwest of India, which is the last natural habitat on earth, apparently, for Asiatic lions and other wildlife, and the villages I grew up. So in the movie, you see my school where I went to school. You also see the cinema hall where I saw first movie. So that cinema hall was shut for like 22 years, and it was being used as a sugarcane storage, by the farmers. So ultimately, when we emptied the sugarcane, we discovered there were wooden benches were still there. They were covered with mud and all. But when we cleaned it up, even the seat numbers are written. There was a peeling paint on the wall with that Art Deco style, whatever I remember. So we refurbished that to make the Galaxy Cinema the way it was. So and we realized that the kind of color and the landscape and the sky and whatever we were looking in the palette to do was all there. The meter gauge railway, which is such a big element in the film, the train, so that was there. And the fields, which is where Samai's home has to be built. So they do have, even now, the tradition of exterior interior kitchen. So people can cook, normally women should be able to cook and same time look at their field, look at their cattle, look at their animal, so many things were available to source it. And all the colors, the textures of the wall and the cinema hall and the exterior, and even the extras we needed for certain big scenes, we had to fill up at a point the entire cinema hall where people have to look like they are coming from small town, and not because the audience, if I made a shot of an audience of spectator in Mumbai or Delhi, it'll look way too different. So many things just gave us that, okay, we are going to just go ahead and shoot, even though however difficult it is. We had to, we had a couple of time Pride of Lion coming on the set, while we were wrapping up. So, all kind of amazing encounters. But there was a great team, there was a great cast, and, they just gave so much of hard work and love, and we were able to pull it off.
You mentioned women cooking, and in the film, one of the things that sort of surprised me is throughout it, you see Sammy's mother cooking, and it's these beautiful like close-up shots of her cooking technique and what she's making. And I got to see it in a screening, and you could hear people sort of mumbling like when the food came up, like because it looked so amazing. What inspired you to have that be part of this film?
So of course my mother was a great cook, I mean, and everyone, she passed that on to my brother and sister and my father, and so we all love cooking, and only discussion in family was always about food, and organic food, and where does the chili come from, and where does the spices come from, and what do you eat, and so food was integral part of the family. But as a kid, when I used to swap my lunch box with my friend to watch free movies, I never knew food was that big deal till I moved to the cities, and I started realizing that, oh my God, where I grew up, that's where world's 3% vegetarian population lives, in that belt. And in the entire planet, we only have 5% people who are vegetarian. So you can imagine the cuisine which is there, known as Kathiawadi cuisine, was never exported. Even if you go to Mumbai or Delhi, you will not find this food, because it was vegetarian, and the demand of restaurant was always, oh, you need to have meat, and otherwise they don't work, and who's going to eat vegetarian food? But locally the tradition is intact, and it's really organic, because people cook what they find within their 200 miles of the radius. They eat what they grow. So I realized that the food has to become big integral part. And for me, making this movie was also kind of unlearning process. I wanted to be simple, authentic, organic. So when we were writing screenplay and even throughout the pre-production, I had this big F letter written all over the production base for cast and crew to constantly remember. This film is about F for family, F for food, F for friends, F for future, and just they shouldn't lose that concentration. It has to remain as simple as that: family, film, food, friends, future. So don't lose your concentration. And as you probably know, in India, the earlier movies, the popular movies, used to call masala movies, and masala literally means, in Indian word, spices. So you take a movie and you put a little bit of humor, a little bit of song, bit of action, and you make a masala movie, and that's a very popular term when I was growing up as a kid. So when I started watching Hollywood movies or world cinema, the only way I can explain to people in my village was, oh, those are not masala movie. That's different. He said, oh, they don't have song. I said, no, they don't have song. So that spice box became for me a very important metaphor, over the years, what my mother used to have. And in those scenes, I even used props of my mother, what she really used for cooking. They are the real some of the objects which I had as a kid, including the tiffin box, the way to cut, the shackle where you cut the vegetable, and the wooden spice box has been in family for like 60 to 70 years. Yeah.
It's fascinating.
And my brother cooked all the meal. And just, it is a funny thing, just before I was talking to you, we have, the film is coming out in Japan by Sochiku. And one of the first thing they asked, please send recipe book, not the biodata of filmmaker. No, we need that.
What, just to wrap things up, what was the first Hollywood movie that you saw as a kid that inspired you to fall in love with film? And then how old were you when you left to go pursue your dream?
So as a kid, when I was in my village, I only saw popular so-called Bollywood or Hindi, popular Indian cinema, nothing else. I had no idea how the movies are made or what is filmmaker, cinematographer, no clue. I had just fallen in love with that light and magic of cinema. Then I left my village when I was about 13 and a half, not as in the movie when Samay is 10. And when I arrived in city, in order to continue fine arts and film design school, I had to learn English, So while I was learning English through my friends in dorm, in the hostel, we discovered they were going to watch English movies, so-called English movies, which were the Hollywood movies. They were not English. And there were a couple of Westerns, which were there. They used to show old Hollywood movies. They were not like new. So mainly there were Westerns like McKenna's Gold. And then there was Good, Bad, and Ugly, and I was just blown away. Like I had never seen anything like that. And I even said to my friend, imagine this movie work without songs, they have no song and they still work, So that was my sort of first discovery of all Hollywood film. And earlier I was learning English and watching only Hollywood movies. So my earlier vocabulary only came from Hollywood movies, So it was a very funny time. And during those visit to the cinema hall, which used to screen Hollywood movies, I had seen a poster, watch movies from all around the world, join our film club. So in a small town, there was a film club, which I joined, where I discovered the world cinema, the French New Wave, the Italian Neorealism, like all kind of magical movies, which I had never seen. And ultimately, I ended up running that film club as a teenager and as a student, where I wrote about films and programmed the film and brought an old Bolex camera and, became a self-taught filmmaker. Yeah.
So, and they just said at 13 years old, you were ready to go. That's, I can't imagine.
I was ready to go when I was even 9. I went to my teacher and I complained, I want to make movies. No, I didn't say make movies. I said, I want to become movies. So he corrected me. You don't become movies, you make movies, So I said, oh, because as a kid, we become doctor, we become engineer. So I thought I become movies, So, and he had corrected me and he always told me, that, look, you have to wait about 8 to 9 years. You must complete your school, high school, and graduation, because those days in India, you can only go to film school it was the postgraduate course, in Film Institute of India. And there were very few film schools, and I knew nothing about it. So I said, oh my God, I have to wait 1, 2, 3, 4, 9 years to make movies. He said, you are too young. And thanks to my teacher, who said you should try to go to the discipline closer to cinema. And since I used to paint and draw and do some local children, folk drama, he said, why don't you go to fine arts school? And I said, what's that? Never heard of it. And he said, at least you will be going in that direction, and get out of here, learn English if you want to make movies. And that was one good advice, which started making me dream that I could in the future make movies. And I was all along remain always obsessed with film. I never wanted to do anything ever in my life.
Wow, that's incredible. Nalin, congratulations on the film and being selected as India's submission to this year's Oscars. Best of luck with the upcoming nominations, and thank you for spending time with me to discuss your film Last Film Show.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you.